Hello, everyone. Bienvenidos. Thank you all so much for spending your Friday evening with us. I have my friend and customer on our live stream today, Patrick. Hello, Patrick.
Hello, Mariana, and everybody else.
I'm so happy that Patrick is joining us because we're going to be talking about his experience moving from the United States to Atlixco. Atlixco is a pueblo mágico in the state of Puebla that doesn't get a lot of recognition in the foreigner community, or like it doesn't get mentioned as one of like the top places to live. But personally, I think it's a great option. It's a great city. Patrick is obviously going to give us his insight into what he thinks about it and why he chose it and all those things. But before we get started, I would love for you to let us know in the comments. One, go ahead and ask any questions you have about anything that we talk about today. Patrick is obviously going to be giving you guys we're going to be asking Patrick some questions, but feel free as you hear some of his answers and some of his stories. If something comes up, hey, just go ahead and chat it into the live stream chat, and then I'll pick some questions at random, and we'll start right away. So without further ado, let's get right into it. I see some of you guys are already joining us, and where is it? It's in the state of Puebla. So if you see it right here on the bottom of the screen, I have it spelled out for you so that way you can look it up on Google Maps. So hello, everybody. Thank you guys so much for being here. And we're going to get right into it. So first of all, I would love for Patrick to introduce himself. We've been kind of chit-chatting a little bit before we got started, and he has a really interesting story. But Patrick, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
I don't know about interesting, but I'm 73 years old. I was born in Milwaukee and I lived there until 1969, 70, when I moved out and never went back there to live again. I've kind of been all over the place. Before I moved down here, I was working as a full-time manager for a janitorial company in the Twin Cities in Minnesota, ABM Janitorial, where we are contract cleaners and we clean big buildings. And like we used to clean the airport, and we clean the big downtown buildings and stuff. And most of the employees that worked with me were Mexicanos. Mm. And so I was used to Mexican people and their customs and culture quite a bit. And it just seemed like a good place. It might be a good place to retire. And that's when I started thinking about it. And one day, my wife died about 10 years ago. And after I started getting Social Security, I realized I needed time more than I needed money. And so I started working part-time. And I was surprised that they let me work as a manager part-time, but they did. And then when I told my boss last summer, I said, when I can't work anymore, I'm going to move to Mexico and retire down there and live on Social Security. And she said, I hate to lose you, but she says, why don't you go now? She said, why are you waiting until you're old and decrepit? Go while you still have some life left in you and enjoy yourself. And after thinking about it for about 10 minutes, I said, she's right. And so wow. I started researching, moving to Mexico. And I'd been, I'd been watching videos by Q Paul and a couple of other people. I kind of filtered out here's the listicles and, the clickbait and stuff like that. And he had a episode where he was talking about how much it costs to rent a house down there or rent a place down there. He said, okay, so here's the money you have. Now let's go and let's find a place. And at the very end, he said, if you really want some help, check out the Mexican relocation guide or the Mexico relocation guide. I said, well, that's cool. And then I was looking for some more articles on it. And I got to the almost retired in Mexico.
Brighton. Yeah, with Brighton.
With Brighton. And at the end of his, he said, check out the Mexico relocation. I said, well, that's two people I respect right there. So, and this is like right at the start of my search for information of actually living down here. And I went to the guide's website, and just from looking at the stuff that you gave away for free, I said, yeah, this has to be well worth the money. If this is what she's giving for free, it's got to be even better once you buy it. And it has just saved me so much time. And it's been, it, everything just snowballed down from there. And once I started the ball rolling, I ended up here. So I started thinking about it in July, and I ended up here in November.
Okay, so that's what, like 4 months?
I went from a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house to 3 suitcases and 4 guitars,
Nice. Your babies.
my babies. Well,
Yeah.
I had 24 guitars, so
Wow.
I had a
That's a
recording
downside.
studio, so I had 24 guitars and 8 basses, and I had to thin the herd, as it were. I couldn't move them all with me, and I didn't really need them all. I needed them for the recording studio. Once the studio was gone, I no longer needed them.
Yeah. Patrick is a musician, so he was telling me before we started the live stream today that he actually used to have a recording studio, and he's a recording engineer, so he knows his stuff when it comes to sound and recording artists, which I think is so interesting. We were just talking about how maybe once he gets situated a little bit more, maybe he might join the music scene in Atlixco, or maybe Puebla. You might end up going a few times to Puebla, depending on, where your band goes. So tell us why Atlixco? So you looked at Cuba Paul's videos, you looked at Brighton when you were looking into Mexico. Did you know anything about Puebla, or did you know anything about Atlixco?
I didn't really know much about any place in Mexico except what my Mexican coworkers had told me earlier, And of course, those are shaded because, like I was saying earlier, it seems like all Mexicanos think that wherever they come from is the best place in Mexico, And so I started looking at, well, what do I really need? What would I like if I moved to Mexico? First of all, it's affordability. That I wanted to be able to live on less than what my Social Security was. I wanted the climate to be good year round, because that's one thing that's bad about Minnesota. I could make a lot of money there, and I could always find work, but I was a shut-in for 8 months of the year because I hated the winter. I absolutely despise the cold weather.
Yeah.
It's a bad place to live if you hate the winter, but you learn to cope. And so I started just looking. I started watching videos on, especially your videos, on different places where people were living. And I could tell from the videos of people who moved to the coast that the coast got very hot. And I didn't really want to do that, although I can stand the heat better than I can stand the cold. And then I finally came upon the one with Martha about Atlixco. And I said, boy, and you showed what the rental properties were going for and stuff. I said, boy, that pretty much ticks all my boxes right there. And I before I started looking, I asked one of the Mexicanos at work. I said, here's what I get for Social Security. Can I live in Mexico on that? And he converted to the pesos, and he said, oh, heck yeah, you could live great in Mexico on that. He said, you just don't expect to live in a gringo enclave or in Mexico City or something like that. Sure. You're going to want to move into a place where there's fewer English speakers, a place where it's more agrarian, possibly. And so when I looked at Atlixco, I said, that's exactly what they described to me, and it's a place where it's mostly Mexican people, which is what I wanted. If I want to live with a bunch of old gringos, I could do that in the U.S.
Yeah.
And I used to work with an old German painter, and we were painting houses in a place when I lived in Florida. And it was all old retired people, and they had rules that you couldn't have any children. It was only old retired people.
Oh, sure.
And he turned to me one day and he says, it's wrong to live this way. He says, you need young people, you need children around you. He says, this just makes you older. And I agree with him on that. And so I wanted to live in a place where there were families around and, people who were just good working people, And once again, Atlixco ticked all those boxes. And then an added bonus is I'm only 20 minutes away from Puebla, which is a really big city, and a couple hours away from Mexico City, which I've only been to the airport there, but one of these days I'm planning on going there and spending a week and just, going to the cultural places there, museums.
Yeah. Maybe you and Tony can meet up and take a tour together to Mexico City.
Exactly.
I mean, there's like buses going every 20 minutes, so.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the thing is, you get to, at least if you're going to the airport, it takes you like an hour and a half to get to Mexico City. And then it takes you another hour and a half to go the last 3 miles to the airport.
Yeah, that's true.
You get there and you think,
True,
boy, I'm
yes.
almost there. You look
Traffic.
on your phone app and you go, oh yeah, we're 5 miles away. And then
Traffic.
a half hour later, we're 4 miles away.
It's faster to walk.
Once you get to a certain point, yeah.
Yeah,
So, but
absolutely.
it's all part of the adventure.
Yeah, yeah, I'm so happy. And you've got, I wish we could clone Martha 30 times.
Oh,
Like, she's such an amazing resource. For anybody who's wondering who Martha is our recommended private relocation tour guide in Atlixco, but she also does a variety of other things
yeah.
for our customers.
I'm taking
She helps.
Spanish classes from her as well.
Yeah, she's a Spanish teacher. She helps some of our customers find rentals. She helps them set up utilities. Yeah, she helped Patrick find his rental. What was that like? So tell us a little bit more about your rental process.
Oh, I wanted to say one more thing about Atlixco, and that is that when I moved to Mexico, I did not want to have a car. And so one of the things that I needed was good public transportation, and I needed good internet. And Atlixco has both. My internet is great here. And, you know, 8 pesos for a combi, and I'm going pretty much wherever I want, sometimes 2 combis. Still, it's under $1. And Uber,
Very cool.
no matter where I've been in town and on an Uber, it's never cost me more than usually about 50 or 60 pesos, sometimes up to 100. If it's a bad time of the day, it'll cost more. But I've learned to time my trips so that I'm at the cheaper time of the day and I'm at the more empty buses and stuff like that. So you just learn the warp and the woof of the place. So what was the question? Oh, the rental thing.
Yeah.
I told Martha, when I first came here, I got an Airbnb for the first month. And I paid way too much for it, of course, but I knew that I would. But I figured that would get me in town. It would get me started. I could get my Conhay done, and then I could look for a permanent place to live. And so about the 15th or so, I told Martha, I said, I would like to go out and start looking for apartments. Where should I look, or houses? And she said, well, what do you want? I said, well, ideally I would like a house. I could deal with an apartment, but I said, I like to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and play my guitar. So a house would definitely be a bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Although I'm finding out now that everybody gets up at 3 o'clock.
It's okay. It wouldn't be a big deal.
It doesn't matter. But that's another part of the adventure. You just.
But you're trying to be a good neighbor. They're not trying
well, I
to
was
be
at the
good
start
neighbors.
anyway. And so, mostly through Facebook Marketplace, and she had a couple other outfits she told me to check. And so I found myself, it helped to check more than once a day because things change from morning to afternoon. And we narrowed it down to about 4 or 5 places. And on the day that we wanted to look, we could only make appointments at 2. And the first one was out where I was living, which was kind of outside of town, on the outskirts up in the greenhouse area. And it was an okay place, but the problem was that if you needed the bathroom, you had to go to a separate building out back. Now it had plumbing and everything, but I just didn't like the idea of having to get up in the middle of the night and walk out and other things. So it was a non-starter. The second place we went to was in the colony of Solares Grandes, which is in the town. It's about 1 kilometer from downtown, walking distance really. And I saw the place, and it was exactly what I wanted. It had a couple of bedrooms, had 3 bedrooms actually, 2 bathrooms. It had 2 stories, so there was a stairway, and then going up to the roof, there's a patio where I can see the volcano Popocatépetl. I look another way, and there's this huge hill, which is like the landmark in Atlixco. No matter where you are in Atlixco, you can see the Cerro de San Miguel. And, so where you are, you can look up, you see the chapel on top, and you say, okay, I'm south or I'm north.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's just there. It's the
good landmark
point,
Yeah.
And it's just perfect for me. I can go up there and I can spend time outside, which I could not do in Minnesota. Even if you're outside, sometimes the bugs are just so horrible there. And here, the way that it's set up, no matter what time of the day it is, there's always shade. So I can either have sun or shade, whichever I want.
Yeah.
because where the stairs get up, the sun is behind that. And so there's always the shadow of that. And so if I want shade, I just move my table over and I move into the shade. If I want sun, I move out of it. It's perfect. And
Now,
so, and it's $5,500. It was unfurnished, or 5,500 pesos, excuse me.
okay, I was going to say, wow, that's pretty pricey.
5,500 pesos, which was well within my budget. I set a budget of 8,500 pesos.
Yeah,
And I said I'd go 10,000 if it was perfect and it was furnished. This one was unfurnished, which I found out means it doesn't have a refrigerator or a stove as well, which was news to me. But I furnished it outside of stuff that I would have to buy anyway. Like I had to buy a couple monitors for my computers and stuff like that, brooms and dust mops and things. But stuff that I had to have because the place was unfurnished, I figure it was less than $3,000 to fully equip it with bed, couch, dining room stuff, all my kitchen utensils, appliances, all that stuff. And, it's set up nicely for me. I had a very crowded 4-bedroom place up in Minnesota, and I have a very minimalistic 3-bedroom place here, which I just love. I absolutely love it. I love the neighborhood. I love the fact that I'm only a block and a half from Tony DeWitt and his wife, Shirley, which is, if people are following the Facebook page, they know Tony DeWitt.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Contributor, and he's an interesting dude. He's lived all over the world. He's got so many.
Yeah. He's also from Europe, so he has that experience growing up in a different country and then moving to the U.S. and being in a different country, and now moving to Mexico, totally different country.
Yep, and he and Shirley are just the nicest people in the world. They've helped me out so much. And Mark, between the three of them, it just made my transition so much easier here.
Definitely. You got the best of the best.
Again, it's just been lucky for me all the way. I've been very fortunate.
But you know what? I always say that people have either a good or it depends, right? I mean, I know obviously there can be like hiccups that happen along the way, but it's all about your attitude and how you face those, whether it's going to become a really big issue or just something that you're like, okay, I'm learning something from this. I'm going to move forward. I'll learn not to do it again. I think that a lot of people, newcomers especially, might complain about some things that happen to everybody, but it's all about how you approach it, right? And how you handle the stress of that. So anyway,
I was very fortunate. The Mexicanos at work, once they knew that I was moving here, they gave me a very realistic viewpoint of what life was like here. So pretty much everything that I found down here was almost exactly as I expected it.
That's good.
In the surprises that I've had, they make perfect sense with what I've known before. I didn't come down here expecting it to be the United States, only cheaper.
Yeah, good.
And I did my research online, and I also did my research with real live people that would tell me the truth. And it's been absolutely perfect. There have been some things that are more difficult here than it was back up at home. Like, for instance, sidewalks are not nice and smooth. You have to watch where you're going. And every curb is a different height. And there's dogs everywhere, But it's just part of Mexico, and you just accept it and embrace it, Don't complain about it. Figure the beauty in it,
Yeah, and it's not going to change, so you might as well adapt to it, right?
Exactly.
Change your attitude. About it all you want, it's not going to change.
We have to do that in the United States too, I know that there are people who love to complain, but for me, if I couldn't change it, if there's nothing I can do to change it, I change my attitude towards it, You have to move on.
So you sold everything in the U.S. You sold your house, you sold your belongings. All you brought was your 4 guitars, your 3 suitcases. Yep. Now that you're actually, situated, you're a little bit like, okay, you've been there a few months now. What are some things that you wish you would have brought? Or what are some things that you brought that you wish you would have left behind?
Well, one of the things that I couldn't bring with me that it was really difficult was I had a parrot that I had owned for, she was 28, I want to say.
Oh, yeah.
And I had her all that time. Now she's going to live to be 60 to 80 years old. And so she had a long life ahead of her. And one of the supervisors at work had a cousin who grew up with parrots. And she showed him some videos that I had made of my bird. and they were very interested in taking her, and their family came over, and my bird took to them right away. And so I gave the bird to them along with all the stuff that went with her.
Yeah.
And they've sent me videos. She's very happy where she is. And
That's good.
I think because it's a big family, you know, she lived alone with me. So she was alone a good part of the day. And birds in the wild are never alone. So I didn't know that when I got a bird. Had I known that, I never would have gotten one, I'm sure. But so I'm sure that she's much happier because there's a 5-year-old and then a teenager and the parents, and you know, like most Mexican families, there's a lot of
traffic.
Yeah, there's a lot of other family members and friends and stuff that are passing through the house all the time.
Yeah.
And so she seems to be doing really well. That was difficult for me. It was interesting. I had to do a lot of triage, because I getting down to a few suitcases, but all the advice that I found from people that I respected said, don't move all your crap down there. You're just going to regret it. That's US stuff, and you need different stuff down here. And I left behind a lot of cables, charging cables and stuff like that I thought that I would need. And I regretted that because they're harder to find here. Some of them are very specific. And I thought when I came down here that I'd just be able to use Amazon Mexico. Well, I can't because I don't have a Mexican credit card. So the only place that I could buy online, and I bought a lot from them, was from Bodega Aurrera, because they would take PayPal. And so I bought a lot of stuff from them. And but once again, the specific things that I thought that I could get, because I looked at Amazon Mexico and I thought, oh shit, I can buy all this stuff down here if I need it, So, that's
have you tried to use your, kind of going a little bit off topic right now, but have you tried using your, just buying it on Amazon US and then shipping it to Mexico and then just paying the tariff?
Yeah, they won't do it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, because they have Amazon Mexico. So if you want to buy from Amazon and ship it to Mexico, they say no, buy it from Amazon Mexico.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
So, so I'm going to go visit a friend of mine in Florida next month. And so I bought a bunch of stuff from Amazon and had it shipped to her.
Got it. Yeah. So you're just going to bring it down.
I'll go there with an empty carry-on and I'll come back with a full one,
Yeah, of course.
And I'm going back to Minnesota in June to visit people, or June, probably June, and I'll probably do the same thing then, because I still have my American Amazon account, which I use for a lot of stuff still. I have Kindle Unlimited, and I get a lot of books from them, and especially, which is really nice, is a lot of Spanish readers are on Kindle Unlimited. So it helps me for having Spanish books to read. They're in my level or just a little above me, which helps a lot. So,
yeah. So you're really learning your way around. You've already explored Amazon Mexico, even though you haven't bought anything. You were telling me earlier that you do, your daily walks to Bodega Aurrera, which for anybody who's wondering what that is, that's a grocery store in Mexico that's very popular.
Kind of like Walmart.
Yeah, kind of like Walmart. It has a little bit of everything. And it is usually the lower cost grocery store for Mexicans. So tell me, what else have you explored in Atlixco? What have been some other surprises?
Well, just every day is a surprise. I go out and I'll walk a different route, just to explore my neighborhood. I found out that there are 3 main big grocery chains here. There's, what is it, Soriana?
Soriana's one of them, yeah.
And then Chedraui also.
Chedraui.
And so, and there are different attitudes in both stores, so I basically go to Bodega Aurrera or to Chedraui usually. And what I'll do is, I have this little Bodega Aurrera that's about 1 kilometer away. I walk there and I walk back every couple of days to buy stuff. But then once every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I will take the combi down to Chedraui. And that's where I buy all the heavy stuff. I just go there, take the combi down. I buy like 5 2.5 liter bottles of soda, and I buy all the canned goods and everything like that. And then I get an Uber back,
Okay.
And so it's like 16 pesos to go, and to come back, it's 50 pesos and then a 10 peso tip. So like 60 pesos. So I'm still under 100 pesos total for the round trip. And yeah, and when I go there, I buy everything. I fill a grocery cart and I buy mops and brooms and, big stuff. I'll buy shelving units, whatever I need. I go there and I buy it all at once, and then I take the Uber back.
Yeah, you stock up. You stock up. Any limitations to you having to walk in a lot of places? Like you mentioned that you wanted to look for a place that you don't need a car. So,
right.
Do you regret that at all? Like not bringing your car?
No, not a bit. And as a matter of fact, like a month before it, right at the start of October, the car that I had, the transmission went out on it.
Okay.
And I said, this is an omen. I'm moving at the right time. And fortunately, I had a stepson who had an extra car, and he let me use it till the end of the month, which was really nice because I was looking at renting. That one thing where I was living, I had to have a car. There was no public transportation going there. So I had to drive, 20 miles to get to reliable public transportation, unless I wanted to pay, $30 or $40 for an Uber,
Yeah. And renting a car for a month would be very expensive.
That would have been about $3,000, I figured. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, but yeah, no. And the other thing is I have a health issue where I need to get more exercise, and I need to strain my heart to do that. I have an inoperable blockage or two, one that's right next to my heart. And my doctor told me that if I exercise hard enough, my heart will actually bypass that blockage in itself. And I could see on the X-ray, that's not an X-ray, I can't remember what they call it right now, but I could see
cardiogram.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, I could see that it had already started working that way when I was starting to exercise. Now here in just 3 months, I've walked a lot more. And my thing is I need more excuses to walk. I don't need more excuses not to walk.
Sure.
So like I could take a combi down to Bodega Aurrera here, and then take a combi back. But it's good for me to walk 2 kilometers, 1 kilometer downhill, and then 1 kilometer with weight back. Sometimes I'll walk down to the El Centro, to the Zocalo. That's like 1.5 kilometers, and I'll walk down there and spend a couple hours, enjoying myself, and then walk back uphill all the way. And it's something that it's something I need to do. I feel like I've probably added 5 years to my life already just moving here in the 3 months I've been here. And if I can, and I'm going to keep pushing it and try to get up to even more. Right now, I walk 4 to 6 miles a day. And I'd like to get that up to 6 to 10. My pace is, I get the miles in, but my pace is slow. Like Tony and Shirley, they walk a lot faster than I do. We're going to this concert tomorrow, and he said, well, come over here and we'll walk together. And I said, well, I think I'm going to hold you back. Why don't I just walk there myself, and I'll meet you there at 5:30? And they said, okay, that sounds like a good idea. Because he knows, I walk much slower.
He's going to fight you on it.
Well, he would be more than willing to slow down for me too, though. I mean, I know that.
Yeah, he's good people. So some people obviously want to know, like, so you mentioned, you're living on Social Security. You wanted to find a place where you could not only live on that, but actually, live comfortably and then not have to be like pinching pennies. Would you mind sharing just an overview of what your monthly expenses are without, going into a ton of detail, unless you have those details?
Yeah. No, I kind of looked it up. This is, everything is still mixed together, but as nearly as I can figure it out. Well, my rent is 5,500 pesos, which is about $320 right now.
Mm-hmm.
I spend every week about $100 on getting my laundry done, and I tip them 10 or 100 pesos, excuse me.
I know, it's hard. Sometimes you just have to
Okay, so I figure in a month I probably spend about 450, 500 pesos on laundry. Gas, I just filled up a tank, and a tank lasts me about two months. And so half a tank of gas cost me about 175 pesos, which is $10. Water is 200 for the 2 months that I've been here. And so that's about $6. Groceries, as near as I can tell, I've only spent 5,000 pesos on groceries. It could be more than that.
That's brooms and cleaning supplies.
Yeah, that's my personal stuff, cleaning supplies, but not the brooms and so I'm not counting brooms and dustpans and stuff like
Got
that,
it.
because you buy that once. I'm talking about,
Sure.
aspirin, shampoo, well, not shampoo, obviously, but,
Fair enough.
personal care
Your
products,
beard,
personal care
maintenance.
products and all that. And what medicine I've had. Now I do have to get my prescriptions refilled, and I haven't done that yet. So altogether, I figured that cost me about 11,500 pesos, which is $670. Now, I figure, let's just say that I'm wildly off on my estimate. I said, well, what if if it cost me 50% more for everything except for my rent? That would be about 17,500 pesos, which is about $1,000
Yeah.
a month. Now I budgeted 1,500. I actually get more than that for Social Security. That gives me some that I can put away in the bank.
Which
And
you
then
should, yeah.
my company is also letting me work 10 hours a week on computers down here. And so that gives
Okay.
me some more money that I can put in the bank that I don't touch at all. That just goes right into the bank.
That's
And
wonderful.
so
I mean, you're living on half of what you get from Social Security. That's
yeah,
really,
I think it's
really
going to
great.
be more than that, because no, like I brought my pastime interests and stuff like that. I haven't counted any of that in. I brought
Oh,
enough
got it.
guitar strings and everything like that to last me for a long time. I'm
Sure.
learning how to draw, and I brought enough drawing stuff so I don't have to buy that. But when I have to buy that, that's going to add into that. It's probably going to cost me another $100 or $200 a month just for that.
Yeah. That makes sense. And of course, once you start making friends and going out more,
Also,
and,
I don't have internet and telephone on here. I'm overpaying for internet. It's like 900 pesos. I think
got
I could
it.
probably get by at 400, but I didn't want to take a chance, because I was thinking in terms of up north, where I was downloading big music files, which were gigabytes and gigabytes. And so I wanted to make sure I had enough gigabytes, and I don't use that much here because nobody's sending me those huge files anymore.
Uh-huh.
I don't watch that much TV and all that. My cell phone costs me about $20 a month.
Yeah. And you do like you just top it off at the
Well,
art
no,
stores and stuff.
because I came down with an iPhone 15, which doesn't have a SIM card.
Oh,
I
yeah.
had to buy a plan, and so
Got
the
it.
plan is 450 pesos a month.
Yeah. Which is
So
still very, very affordable.
still way cheaper than the United States.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
that's for unlimited data, unlimited.
Pretty well, all the data that I need anyway,
Got it.
And up north, my internet costs me $130 a month. Here it's
Yeah, which
costing me
is,
about 40 or 50, and I'm probably going to go down to 25 or 30, because I just don't need that much. But I didn't
yeah.
want to take a chance on running out.
Now, do you feel like you're pinching pennies? Do you feel like you're living like below your means a little? Do you feel like you're, like you were living a little bit more inflated in Minnesota, and now you've like, no?
I'm
I
pretty
see
much
you
living,
shaking.
I'm eating pretty much the same stuff I ate up there. I'm a vegan. And so, the vegetables down here are the same as they are.
Cheaper.
They're a little bit cheaper if I go to the mercado instead of the grocery store, they're a little bit better. I can
Yeah.
look around until I find the good ones. Like some days I go to the grocery store and the tomatoes look like crap and I don't even buy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I went to the mercado, I could have just kept on going until I found someone who had good tomatoes.
Sure.
And so that's kind of my plan in the future, is I'm going to have fewer days walking down to the bodega, and like one day a week where I go to Mercado, and then maybe one day I go to Bodega Herrera, and split it up that way so that I'm buying what I need at each place.
Yeah.
So
And
like
it's very
Bodega
common for
Herrera, I'll be buying marmalade and peanut butter and stuff like that. And I'll get my fresh veggies and fruits from the Mercado.
Yeah. It's very common for a Mexican household to, basically, buy groceries every 3-4 days, because especially if they go to the markets instead of the big box grocery stores, where things don't last as long because they're not as preserved, or, they don't put those films on vegetables and fruits.
Right.
Somebody's very excited that you're vegan.
Yeah, well, once again, I'm a vegan. I'm a nutritional vegan because of my heart.
Mm-hmm.
My body takes anything that has fat or oil in it and turns it into plaque on the inside of my veins. It's a
Okay.
marvelous machine for doing that. It does a great job on it. So like instead of, if I'm frying something, instead of putting tablespoons of oil in a pan, I have a sprayer and I spray the pan.
Yeah.
And, I use nonstick pans and, people can tell me about health issues with that, but I'm more worried about the oil killing me than I am about the fumes from
Yeah.
frying. So,
Same. Same.
so,
I tried to use those spray oils too. It really
yeah.
does cut down a lot on what you consume.
Yep, and when I stir fry veggies, I stir fry that in water and sauces,
Yeah, water frying is
Yeah,
awesome. If you guys haven't
exactly.
tried it at home, you should. It's amazing. Are there any other areas of Mexico that you considered before you decided, okay, Atlixco's the one?
You know something? Not really. I wanted to
No?
move quickly and I didn't
Yeah.
have a lot of time. And Atlixco seemed perfect. I came down for a visit in September. And I came down for 3 days and I only wanted to spend 2 of them with Martha, and she couldn't believe that I was going to make up my mind in a couple of days. She said, most people come down and spend 2 weeks. And I said, no, I said, I have the Mexicanos who've informed me of what's going on. I've done my research online. I've watched every video I can watch on Atlixco. And when I came here, everything was pretty much like I thought it would be. There wasn't any real surprises. The only real surprise that I had was just sidewalks and streets were different than I expected them to be, but that wasn't a deal breaker. And I kind of expected them to be worse, but I didn't expect them to be as worse as they were. But I've adapted to that already. So I mean, I automatically am watching where my feet go. I haven't fallen down or anything since I've been here.
That's
And
good.
so, but no, but I am planning on every month or two of taking a trip to some of the other places that people have told me about. So my first trip is going to be to Nayarit, where I have a gringo friend and my old number two. They both live there, and my old number two said, no, you want to live here, you don't want to live down there. And so I'm going to go up and check it out. I'm going to spend probably a week up there. I'll spend a few days with my gringo friend and a few days with Maria and her husband, and just check out Nayarit. It sounds like climate-wise, it sounds like it'd be a good match for me. And the part of it that she lives in, because I said, isn't it hot there by the shore? Well, she said, no, she lives inland enough.
There's mountains, yeah.
She said we can drive to the ocean quickly, but she says we're up enough, and she said we have trees all around our house, so the house stays cool, So I'll try that, and I'll try a few other places. Tony has definitely given me several places that I want to visit and check out. And like I say, it's easy enough to look up the climate where things are. And so climate and affordability are the big things. But the way I feel right now, I'm committed to living in Atlixco for at least a year. And at this point, I don't see any reason to move. I'm happier than heck here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And everything I need. And, the buses are great to ride on down here. It's unbelievable to me how comfortable the buses are, and the bathrooms are clean and nice. And, I can't wait to take a long trip on a bus here.
It's not too big of a city, but it's also not tiny to where, it can get like boring or monotonous. So yeah, I think Atlixco is really a place that a lot of you guys should consider. I put his cost of living breakdown into the comment section, but it didn't format it as I had put it in. So yes, he said he lives on around $1,000 a month. He said 670, but of course he's not considering some of the things that he just mentioned, his hobbies. He's obviously going to be spending on maybe furnishing his house a little bit more. He's going to be making a recording studio, so maybe putting pads and dampening that room. So yeah, obviously there's going to be more than just those expenses. One thing that I think a lot of people don't consider when they move into a higher elevation city like Atlixco is the elevation. Wow. Did that affect you at all?
It did for the first couple of weeks, and it surprised me because when I came in September, I didn't notice it at all. But I think it was because I was so excited to be in Mexico, and I was only there for 3 days. But yeah, I would go for a walk, and I would stop, and I would have to hold on to something because I was very, very dizzy. And it was almost 2 weeks before I felt up firmer on my feet, and it was a month before I really felt that I could walk without looking for something to grab if I started to tip over. Walking was okay, but stopping was almost impossible. And of course, once again, the sidewalks aren't even. So you get to a corner and there's a big dip in the sidewalk, and you're walking over driveways and stuff like that in the sidewalk. So yeah, there's a lot of unevenness going on there. And I can see why a lot of people walk in the street, because it's much more reliable,
Flatter.
Yeah,
especially if you're not wearing the right shoes, for sure.
Yeah.
Somebody is wanting to let you know, Patrick, that you're an inspiration. She wishes you great health and a wonderful retirement. Or he, I'm sorry.
Well,
Are you ready to take some questions from
Sure.
people that have been asking? So, D. Belcher, thanks for being here. How many times did you come to Mexico before you decided to live here?
I didn't. I
Yeah,
had never been to
one-time
Mexico when I
thing.
decided to live here. I came one time before I moved to Atlixco, and that was for 3 days. And that
Made a decision, found a rental, packed his stuff, sold his house, and moved on down.
when I go shopping and I need a shirt, I go to a store. The first shirt that I find that I like, I buy. I buy it and I go home. I don't go to 5 other stores to see if I could find a shirt that I like better or that's a little cheaper. And once I made my decision to go to Mexico, that decision was made.
I love it.
That's
Plus, you
me.
did a lot of research beforehand. It's not like
Ton
you
of it,
came.
yes. I'm an
fully
over
unaware.
researcher.
Yeah.
I will spend more time researching than I will doing sometimes.
What do they call that? Analysis paralysis?
Yeah, but I'm not really paralyzed by it. I just have an undying quench for knowledge, especially knowledge that doesn't earn me any money.
No, but that's good. It's good to exercise the brain.
Yeah.
So somebody wants to know, I don't know, this might be a little bit too personal, but do you have a savings account too, or only have Social Security? Well, I guess you answered that. You are saving some money.
And I do have I lived in a mobile home, and so I didn't have the $500,000 that somebody has when they sell a home.
Yeah.
I did own the home, and I had to put about $20,000 into fixing it up before I moved, because I needed a new roof, and I wasn't going to sell it with a leaky roof. So, but I ended up with a good chunk of change that I have in a savings account as well. And then plus, like I say, all my wages that I earn from my work are going into savings, and a fourth of my Social Security. So
yeah, you're well set. Like you're set to at least save some money as well.
Yeah.
From somebody's wondering about safety. Do you feel safe? Especially being a single person, you're living alone. Tell me more about that.
Yep. Well, houses in Mexico are kind of fortified. That was something that surprised me, because you walk down the street and all you see are big walls. You don't see houses, you don't see yards, and then you open up these double doors, and all of a sudden there's a courtyard and maybe a lawn or a garden or something there. And from the top of my roof, I can see one where there's like a little community of 4 or 5 houses. And from the outside, it looks kind of like a dump. I mean, there's these big double doors, that open up. But from the top of my house, I can see inside, and everybody's got nice green lawns. And one guy has this huge patio that's covered, and he has the curtain that goes around it. So if it's raining, he can protect the sides from the rain and everything. And, everybody's got dogs and everybody's got kids running around. It's great. But yeah, I feel very safe, and I feel safe here. I don't usually go walking at night, but that's just because I don't walk at night. But I feel perfectly safe walking around during the day. I feel safe getting into Ubers and taxis. And I believe that Tony and Shirley say the same. They say, one thing I was warned about is, make sure you don't flash your money. Don't make yourself a target. And they said that, as a single older gentleman, to be nice, down here they don't say old man, they say older man, which I like.
Gentleman.
In Spanish, it's hombre mayor, so instead of hombre viejo. So,
No.
So anyway, but as an older man, I am kind of a target. And so I'm careful, I'm aware of my surroundings, but I haven't seen anybody around that looks like they'd be wanting to do me harm yet. And occasionally, like at 10 or 11 o'clock, I'll go out just to stretch my legs, and I'll walk up and down the street. And there'll be some people walking around, and some of them will be a little drunk, but I don't see anybody that seems threatening. I'm living in a city area, so I'm not out in the boonies or anything like that. And it's close enough to El Centro that I can get to El Centro by foot, but it's far enough away that I'm not around all the partying,
Yeah.
the major partying.
Sure. Yeah. You live in a neighborhood where
Yep,
neighbors know each other.
And I just love it. I love seeing the little kids running around. I love seeing the older people and the young couples.
Yeah. Now, I do want to say this, right? Because I mean, we can say like, yeah, he doesn't feel unsafe. He feels perfectly safe. But, I do also have to flip that coin and say bad things can happen anywhere, even in the safest city in the world. Bad things can happen there too. Bad things can happen in Mexico. Bad things can happen to anyone. It's not a matter of like, whether I say this because I know like certain cities in Mexico get a lot of publicity for being super safe. And then some people just assume that they don't have to like use common knowledge or common sense, like they just like they leave their purse unattended, or they just like leave their door open to their house, or they leave their cars fully unlocked. So I would just say, just practice the same common sense that you would back home.
Yeah. There will always be crimes of opportunity if you make yourself a target, And like that was one of the big things when I told my American friends that I was moving down here. The first thing was, well, aren't you worried? Is it safe? I'm going, the places where it's dangerous, and there are places that's very dangerous, where the cartels have pretty much taken over.
Mm-hmm.
That's not where I'm moving. I said,
yeah.
And, people know where those places are and you can avoid them. I said, and I lived in the Twin Cities, and there are places there I wouldn't want to go to in the daytime.
Of course.
If you wear the wrong colored shirt, you can get shot there,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, no, so don't tell me about Mexico being dangerous, because there are more guns in America than there are people. I don't think you can say that about Mexico.
Yeah. Just a different way of seeing crime, right? I know it's like organized crime versus, just manic crime sometimes in other countries. But yeah, I wanted to make that distinction because I know sometimes, people assume that just because we say somebody doesn't feel unsafe, that, you just don't practice the same, awareness that you would back home. So how do you access your money? Like most people in your situation, I assume you still have all your accounts back home because you mentioned that you don't have a bank account because you can't buy on Amazon Mexico. So you just go to the ATMs, or does your landlord accept wire transfers?
No. Actually, Tony and Shirley were able to get an account, but I need to get my RFC before I can do the same. Mm-hmm. And so I've applied for an appointment for an RFC. I applied for one before, but I didn't. Evidently, when I thought that I confirmed it, I didn't confirm it. Because when I went to my appointment, it wasn't confirmed. Then I had to wait a month before I could request another appointment. Because when I tried to request one, they said, no, you have to wait 30 days after you request the first one. So I just did that recently, and now I'm waiting to hear back from them. I'm in their, they call it the virtual
line.
Yeah. So I'm waiting to hear back. And then I'm going to ask Tony to come over and help me confirm it, because he speaks much more Spanish than I do.
Yeah, Tony's he's so impressive.
But yeah, I have a Charles Schwab account, and I go to when I go to the big Bodega Aurrera. I've been pronouncing it wrong for 3 months.
No, you're saying it perfect.
Now I am, but I wasn't before. Or Chedraui, I will stop at one of their machines there. I did use a janky machine once, and I ended up getting some charges on my card that I shouldn't have. And Charles Schwab took care of that immediately for me, but still, it was a pain in the butt.
That's great. Yeah. For anybody who doesn't know this, Charles Schwab has a really great account where it's a regular bank account, and you can open up. It's a savings or a checking account.
You have to get a investment account, which I have.
Brokerage.
You don't have any money in, and then you also get the checking account. And the checking account gives you a cash card. And when you withdraw money from the ATM on a Charles Schwab account, they pay back your fees at the end of the month.
Your ATM fees.
Yeah, at the end of the month, I get a little bump from all the ATM fees that I paid.
And you also don't get charged international fees if you use it to pay at restaurants or at Liverpool or one of these retailers.
Yeah, I will either use my Gringo card or I will, because my Gringo card, my main one that I use is from a credit union, and so far they haven't charged me any international fees when I've used it. But generally
Okay.
speaking, most of what I buy, I prefer to pay cash for, just like everybody else. You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's just so much easier, and I don't have to worry about someone stealing my numbers or anything like that. You know,
Yep.
so
And it also makes you so much more aware of what things cost. You
exactly.
know, like, okay, you make the math in your head. So that was about this many US dollars or Canadian dollars if you're from Canada, or, you know, euros if you're from Europe. So using cash, I think, is a really good idea, especially your first year. That way you can really have an awareness of how much things cost and what the exchange rate is. And you can quickly do that math in your head a lot easier.
That's been my
Um,
my biggest culture shock is in the States. I used one card and I bought everything on it, and then at the end of the month, I paid that off, and I had all my expenses itemized. I never spent cash. I had cash with me, but it was so seldom I actually spent it because it
yeah.
was so much easier to use the card and then pay it off at the end of the month. So I never
Yeah.
carried the balance. And then here it's just the opposite. Here I use
Yeah.
cash all the time, and occasionally I'll use my card. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good though too. And I mean, I feel like, you know, for budgeting reasons, it helps you also make sure that you're not
Yep.
overspending. Like if you use the envelope system or anything like that.
Exactly. Exactly. Well,
Um,
I try to record all my receipts when I get home, you know, just so that I'm aware of what I'm spending and
yeah.
where it is. That's how come I have the figures that I have for my groceries. But like I say, I had to adjust it a little bit because, you know, if I bought a space heater at the same time I bought my groceries, it all came out at the same time, or I bought sheets for the bed. You know, that's
Mhm.
all from Bodega Herrera. And so, you know, I have to guess, okay, well, you know, I spent 1,000 pesos, but only 7,700 of it was on groceries.
Yeah. Now, another thing that I think would be fair to mention or discuss is healthcare and healthcare insurance. You know, you mentioned that you have, you know, blockages, and basically it's a pre-existing condition if you were trying to get private health insurance on the Mexican side. Now, there are international plans that you can get that would cover pre-existing conditions, but there are some, like, you know, there are some nuances to each one. So, what have you personally done?
Well, so far from my viewpoint, from everything that I've been able to find out so far, which isn't a lot, is just that at my age and with my health issues, insurance would be prohibitive. I mean, it would
Mhm.
be very, very, very expensive. And
Mhm.
my plan right now is, you know, if I have anything that's seriously wrong with me, I'll take a plane back to the U.S. and, you know, use my Medicare Advantage plan. I still have a United States address where I get mail. I have to have that for my work anyway. They're not sending anything
Mhm.
to Mexico. And so that's what I would do. I would go back to the United States if I had something serious I had to do, or like, you know, if my time of the year for a colonoscopy or something like that comes up, I would try to schedule all that in a 2 week period and head back to the United States for a couple of weeks. That's
Would
my plan
you,
right now.
sure, yeah. Would you ever consider doing that and paying out of pocket at a hospital, maybe in Atlixco or maybe in Puebla?
Well, I would look into if you know what the cost would be, you know, because you know a round trip to uh, Minnesota is $1,000 for a decent flight, you know. If I
Yeah,
want a nonstop with Delta or Aeromex or whatever, you know. But
yeah.
because I've tried Volaris and I've ended up stuck in a Las Vegas airport for 20 hours, you know. Volaris
Oh,
and Spirit, but not a comfortable time, you know.
yeah, they're very hit
Unfortunately,
or miss.
because the rate was so cheap, I bought the extra insurance for the thing, and so they had to put me on the next flight out, which was nice.
Yeah,
But
but
the
yeah,
next flight out
thousand
was
bucks.
10
I
hours
mean,
later, you know.
$1,000 goes a really long way in medical
Yeah.
services in Mexico.
So
So
I would check out the price, and once
sure.
again, I would probably count on Martha to help me steer me through that nightmare. I'm
Yeah.
I need to fill my prescriptions, and I'm planning on going tomorrow to a pharmacy by myself with my translation app and my limited Spanish and see if I have my list of medications I need, and I'm guessing that they're the same in Spanish or English. You know.
The other way you can look up, just for anybody who's even watching this, for you, Patrick, as well, if you want to know what the equivalent would be in, in a pharmacy in Mexico, I have a list of a lot of the most common prescription medications that are prescribed in the United States. I do have the Mexican, or like the, the generic name, not the brand name or whatever.
Well, I get generics in the U.S., so yeah.
Yeah. And another way would be to, find out what the generic name is and then go to farmaciasdelahorro.com, or I assume Farmacias del Ahorro is in Atlixco. And, finding out like if they have it in stock, how much it costs, whether or not you need a prescription for those things, which normally you shouldn't unless it's like an antibiotic or, a controlled substance. But
Okay.
yeah. A tip for you to save yourself some time before heading over to the pharmacy.
Good idea.
You can always find out the generic name, and then that way
I
the
didn't know I
pharmacist
could do that, but yeah.
Yeah.
I do know the generic name for all my drugs because I'm already getting them under a generic name. So.
Yep. All right. Well, somebody was asking about water. So what do you do for water? Is water safe for you to drink? How do you handle that?
Well, I buy the jug of water. What is it? 20 liters,
Mm-hmm.
I want to say it is. And
it's a big jug. It's like 10 gallons.
Yeah, it's like a water cooler jug,
Mm-hmm.
It's like the big water, and they make a smaller water cooler jug too, which is how Tony gets his. And he takes his and he puts it in a thing where he turns it upside down and he has a tap on the bottom. I bought the electric pump that you recharge by USB, which I really like. And I go through about one of those a week, maybe a little more. And I bought 2 jugs, so I always have one that's full. My gas is by tank. I get a tank of gas, and so I have 2 tanks. And so when one runs out, I just switch it over to the other one. And then I have a number that I got from Tony that the guy comes over and fills up my empty tank for me, and that's 345 pesos. And as far as I know, the last tank I had lasted me 2 months. So I'm guessing this one will probably last me the same.
Now, I know people probably are thinking like, does that mean I have to shower in this kind of water? Or
No.
Is it okay for me to brush my teeth with regular tap water? Yeah. What do you do?
I shower and I wash my dishes in that water, and I wash my vegetables using the tap water and then the iodine drops.
Mm-hmm.
Martha says she uses vinegar,
Yeah.
But the what is it called? The metadine or whatever? Betrodine, yeah. So
Microdine.
Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah, it takes like 8 drops per liter. And I put my veggies in there for 10 minutes. And then I take them out and let them air dry. And then and that's only the ones that I eat raw. Anything that I cook, I don't worry about. I just wash that with tap water and cook it. Like the mushrooms, I don't worry about,
Sure. Yeah, you just take off
like the bananas. I don't worry about onions. I don't worry about because I take off the outside anyway. So, but
avocados, those kinds of things.
But apples and tomatoes and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. What about having moved away? I know that you have like a small, nice community with Tony and Shirley and Marta. But does it ever get lonely? Because I know there are a lot of people that are moving, that are definitely watching this channel, that are either single ladies or single men. They might be thinking about moving by themselves, and they might be too scared because they think, I might get lonely. And of course, there's ups and downs, right? So far, what's been your experience?
Well, after my wife died 10 years ago, I figured out that I'd only actually lived alone in my life for about a month and a half. I always either lived with my family or I had a roommate or, something like that. And so I found that I actually enjoyed living alone. And so I do enjoy living alone in my house. Almost all of my pursuits are pursuits that I do by myself, drawing, writing songs, recording, playing guitar, it's all stuff that it's kind of solitary things. And I have plenty of social activity online with people that I know. I mean, I have 2 groups of friends online, the friends that I've never met, that I call my imaginary friends. And then there's people that I've actually met and know, and I still contact them online, like my family, for instance.
Yeah.
We will talk online and stuff like that. But no, and there's also a WhatsApp meetup group with expats here in Atlixco, and they're a great source. Like when I was trying to figure out the combis and stuff like that, Tony and I were asking all the time there, well, where do I catch the combi to go from here to here? And they
Yeah.
will tell you, yeah, you stand outside the toy store there, and that combi will take you down there, or combi, I should say, will take you there, and you know, and I'm within walking distance of the bus that takes me to Puebla here. That's like a kilometer and a quarter, and that's all downhill also, which is nice.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of opportunities to reach out and meet people, and also in Puebla, there's a big expat community. If you want to do group things, you could go there. There are people in the WhatsApp group that are taking dance lessons together or art lessons together. I'm learning my drawing online, but there are people who need a teacher or want a teacher, and they do that. So, if you want to reach out, there's lots of opportunities. All the
Yeah.
Mexicanas at work were insisting that within a year I was going to be married again.
We'll
I've been
see.
married 3 times. I don't need another wife. Thank you.
Never say never. Maybe just together, not
yeah,
married.
I'm not saying never, but I'm saying I highly doubt it. But we'll see. Things happen. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Don't write it off. You'll never know. You just got there. You just, you just have to meet more people.
Yep.
Maybe that can be the next live
doesn't show me
stream.
that, yeah.
Maybe that can be the next live stream is all about
Maybe,
dating in Mexico.
maybe I'll have a fourth act. Who knows?
I've had so much fun talking to you, and I'm sure that our audience has also had a blast listening to your story. I agree with our subscriber earlier who said that you are an inspiration. I totally agree with that. You are an inspiration, and I also wish you a lot of health, and I know that you're gonna do just fine. And I hope that we can do this again. I hope that we can talk again, maybe in a year.
Yep. But my advice to everybody is, when you find yourself in a strange place, embrace the different. Don't bitch about it. Just, if you have to do things differently, it doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't mean it's harder. It's just different.
Yeah.
I used to drink filtered water. I take tap water and I'd fill it up in a pitcher, and that would filter my water. My tap water in the States. Now I get it out of a big jug. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's just a different.
By the way, I forgot to say, brushing teeth, I do use tap water for that, but I always rinse out my mouth with regular water and mouthwash when I'm done. But I did that up north too. So, I use drinking water for that at the very end.
Yeah.
I don't want to swallow. As long as you're not swallowing it, I think the water here is fine.
Yeah. And honestly, there's people who probably say they brush their teeth and also swish it around with tap water. You will hear all kinds of, different lifestyles.
Yep.
It'll all be just how comfortable you feel with it. And maybe right now you say that, and maybe a year later you're like, I just swish it with the regular tap water. Things can change.
Yeah, I swish with tap water, but like I say, at the end, I always use mouthwash anyway. That's just me.
There you go. That's killing bacteria too.
Yep.
We know that moving to Mexico is not easy. We know that there's a lot of information out there. There's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of websites and resources and YouTube channels and what have you, right? And you might not know which one has like the right information or which one has, sources that you can count on. So that's why we, created this free Living in Mexico guide. For anybody who's interested, I'm going to include the link in the comments. We include a lot of tips to get you started on your research for your move to Mexico. We have things like, some of the common scams to watch out for, some of the top reasons that people move to Mexico, some cost of living examples, a lot of different tips. I also have like tips on what are some questions you should ask before renting, what are some of the best places to live, and we're constantly updating it. I also have, the residency visa process fully explained on this email series. So I left the link in the comments. It's fully free. You get about 15 emails over the course of like 8 weeks. And just slowly you start learning about Mexico. So it's not too overwhelming. And it's not only written by me, it's written by actual experts in their field. So, the real estate portion of it is written by realtors. The cost of living is shared with by people like Patrick and other customers that have shared their actual cost of living. The residency visa process was written by immigration experts. So that way that the information that we're putting out is actually accurate and up to date, which is really important, because just because somebody did it 10 years ago, they might share their experience from 10 years ago, but things change in Mexico. So you have to know how to get things that are up to date. Anyway, I included the link in the comments. Sorry about that. And yeah, I want to thank you all for spending your Friday evening with us. Patrick, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to finally get to, talk to you like this, a little bit digitally, face to face. I hope to meet you one day. And
pleasure is
yeah,
mine.
let's do this again in a year and see where you're at then.
Let's.
All right. And enjoy your concert tomorrow. I'm sure it's going to be a blast.
Oh, I can't
Say
wait.
hi to Tony for me.
I will. I'll tell him that. Well, you can tell him yourself. I'm sure he's watching.
Yeah. Well, hello, Tony. And hello, everybody else. And thank you guys so much for being here. We have a video coming up on Sunday about the best beaches to live in Mexico. And this was all based on your feedback, the people who voted and the people who I sent a survey to. So anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. And I will see you guys soon in another live stream. Nos vemos.
Bye.